Gender and politics in Kenya. Kenya has made strides in women's political involvement through the adoption of the two-thirds gender representation rule that was in the 2010 Constitution, Article 81B. So this rule mandates that no more than two-thirds of members in elective bodies should be of the same gender. But despite this, there are challenges that are persisting in its implementation, including legislative deadlines and the resistance from male MPs and cultural barriers that inhibit women's participation. So consequently, the women in Kenya remain unrepresented in parliament. Only 23.3% of seats are held by women in the National Assembly and only 30.9% in the Senate. So while progress has been made, really significant efforts are still needed to address socio-cultural beliefs and ensure equal representation for women in political spheres. And just reflecting on this, my reflection on shifting perspectives and response to the gender and politics in Kenya is that though initially learning about the persistent marginalization of women in Kenya as parliament, despite constitutional mandates, my reaction is that of, I'm disappointed, but it's not a surprise. Considering that, we are in a patriarchal kind of history, our country, and male dominated. And so equality, it's not easy to really gain this kind of equality. But the hope lies in the potential for evolving social perceptions, and this is facilitated by females, leaders and advocacy efforts of the civil society and women's groups. So what shapes my perspective? Of course, my faith, culture, and career really shape who I am today. So in the interpersonal communication model, contextualizing my background and my perspective is essential for understanding my initial and evolving reactions to classification of gender and politics in Kenya as a multicultural issue. As a Christian African woman influenced by both biblical principles, including even the African cultural values, I approach this issue with a nuanced understanding of equality, justice, and patriarchal norms. So drawing from my career as a psychologist, I recognize systemic inequalities and potential and the potential for societal change. My initial disappointment and lack of surprise at the challenges to gender parity in Kenya reflect both personal, professional insights as well. But however, enduring hope rooted in faith and African heritage allows me to perceive signs of progress amidst obstacles. Providing this cultural, personal context offers a lens through which to complement my shifting emotions and perspectives, emphasizing the complex interplay between constitutional ideals and traditional norms in pursuit of gender inclusion in political power in our country. Okay, on exploring the relevance of the concepts that we have learned in our course in multiculturalism to gender politics in Kenya, I'd wish to note that Kenya's pursuit of gender balance in elected office serves as a significant case study within the realm of multiculturalism and diversity studies. It highlights the intersection of principles with practical policy application. So the issue of gender inequality in Kenyan politics resonates with fundamental multicultural aspects or concepts, and one of them is identity. Gender plays a pivotal role in shaping an individual's worldview and experience, how we look at the world. The marginalization of women in this country politics underscores the influence of gender identity and cultural norms surrounding women in leadership role. And number two, we have dominant versus marginalized groups. Traditionally, Kenyan politics has been dominated by men. Of course, it has always been said that it's a man's world. And so reflecting broader patriarchal biases that privilege or, privilege masculine leadership. So 2/3 gender representation rule really aims at helping in this bias to challenge the power imbalance by promoting the participation of women in politics. And number three, we have structural inequality. So gender inequality in the Kenyan government is deeply ingrained within the political parties, even, societal perceptions, our cultural beliefs, and even the electoral process itself, practices. So addressing these systemic barriers necessitates comprehensive reforms. And number four, we have privilege and oppression. So male privilege perpetuates unequal access to political leadership positions, while women face systemic barriers. The two-thirds rule acknowledges and seeks to rectify that kind of a dynamic. And number five, which is the final one, is a cultural relativism. Understanding gender inequality in Kenya requires contextualizing it within the country's political history and social cultural landscape. So effective solutions must be culturally sensitive and locally driven, respecting Kenyan democratic processes. How then can I implement social justice action in mental health practice? As a mental health practitioner with experience in multiculturalism and clinical practice, I can leverage my unique skills to drive change at both individual and systemic levels in addressing gender inequality in Kenyan politics. And I just want to give a few actionable steps that I could take. And the first one is to advocate for female clients aspiring leadership roles by offering support in building confidence, resilience to discrimination, and coping strategies to combat gender bias. And then number two, establish support groups or workshops for Kenyan women in politics. Provide them with a platform for sharing experiencing, fostering solidarity, and addressing feelings of isolation and marginalization. And number three, educate the public on mental health impacts of political underrepresentation through writing interviews, highlighting issues like feelings of inferiority, frustration, and lack of autonomy. And number four, volunteer expertise to women's rights organizations in Kenya, the organizations that offer training on wellness, resilience, and emotional capacity building to support activists in the struggle for gender equality. Number five, encourage young girls to pursue political careers through involvement in leadership development programs, advocating for representation of female role models in educational curriculum. Number six, establish online platforms offering mental health support for Kenyan girls and women facing systemic biases in political opportunities, addressing issues such as imposter syndrome and confidence. And finally, number seven, lobby Kenyan mental health organizations to endorse full implementation of the two-thirds gender principle as a social justice imperative, emphasizing its importance for women's psychological empowerment and autonomy. And I believe these actions combine clinical expertise with a commitment to social justice, aiming to empower women and promote gender equality in Kenyan politics. So how then do I move beyond awareness and tangible action? To address gender inequality in Kenyan politics beyond raising awareness, I will develop a leadership empowerment program for young Kenyan girls aged between 15 to 18, that's adolescence. So this curriculum will cover various essential skills for political office, and this will include public speaking, policy understanding, campaign planning, media strategy, confidence building, networking, data analysis, and even fundraising. So I will enlist women political leaders as guest speakers and mentors to provide inspiration and guidance. And participants will have networking opportunities and build connections with peers. Graduates of this program will be equipped with the necessary competence to pursue leadership roles effectively, bridging the gap between motivating and practical readiness, or motivation and practical readiness. So this hands-on training transforms awareness into tangible pathways for future women leaders in Kenyan politics. Thank you.